Good evening, I'm Farhana Sheikh. Tonight we unpack the long-awaited call between US President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping. That's coming on AWANI International. US President Donald Trump and Chinese leader Xi Jinping confronted weeks of brewing trade tensions and a battle over critical minerals in a rare leader-to-leader call that left key issues to further talks. Chinese broadcaster CCTV reports that during more than 1 hour call, Xi told Trump that the China-US relationship needed adjustments to eliminate all kinds of interference and even sabotage.
Xi hailed the talks in Geneva last month as an important step towards resolving economic and trade issues. Xi also urged Trump to back down from trade measures that roiled the global economy and warned him against threatening steps on Taiwan, according to a Chinese government summary. However, Trump said on social media that the talks focused primarily on trade led to a very positive conclusion, announcing further lower-level US-China discussions, and that there should no longer be any questions respecting the complexity of rare earth products. The leaders also invited each other to visit their respective countries.
Following calls between Trump and Xi, questions are growing over whether high-level talks, despite lacking substance, still serve a purpose. Some argue they reduce the risk of miscalculation. Others say they mask deeper tensions and offer false hope. Collins Chong-Yu-Kiat, Foreign Affairs and Strategy Analyst at University Malaya, says the move fits into Trump's broader strategy and that his actions shouldn't be underestimated.
These, actions by Beijing for the past couple of decades now in terms of, putting Washington at its, very own, corner in terms of, grossly violating the norms and rules for the market, for the international law, and how Beijing has been called out, in terms of, having these, practices that distort, market prices, dumping, forced technology transfer, intellectual property theft and all that, which have all put, the general, American workers at a greater disadvantage. So Trump is right in calling out all these, practices and actions by Beijing that have, suppressed, the rights of, America and different countries throughout the world. And, these tariff recalculations are in place to ensure that the rest of the world, including China, play by the rules, play by the norms, to adhere to this, globally recognized, rules and norms at various levels. So this is, I think, one of the strategic moves for Trump to reset the global market order and to ensure that, Beijing and, and the elites in Beijing to comply with the international norms and rule of law. And of course, also this will be extremely important for Washington and for Trump to ensure that, the ultimate impact will be to strengthen America's power credentials, to ensure that, the overall long-term goal has always been to elevate the power dominance of the US and to retain its key advantages in terms of both its demographic potential, both its economic and technological supremacy, of course, ultimately to retain its hard power military strength vis-a-vis Beijing, and of course also in pushing the notion that, America will not be, in a state of decline, and that despite these whole arguments that, this, transactional approach by Trump will further weaken his power, this has been proven, otherwise, with, this new, push by Trump to consolidate is, this whole global norms through the America First approach, and of course the importance of the notion of the peace through strength mantra to ensure that nations will ultimately depend on the hard power support and deterrence capacity provided by Washington.
Right, we have more after this break. Don't go anywhere.
Yang paling hebat, aku. Kau nak sampai tempat aku? Teruskan bermimpi.
Hebat? Kau yakin? Tenagaku terbukti. Aku dah lebih jauh. Kau bukan macam aku. Pilihan kau, punca kejatuhan kau. Memang ada yang hebat. Hingga munculnya yang terhebat.
Welcome back. Donald Trump's aides have scheduled a call between the U.S. president and billionaire Elon Musk on Friday. This comes amid their major public feud, which included threats over government contracts and Musk calling for Trump's impeachment. Following Musk's criticism of his tax cut and spending bill, Trump broke his silence on Thursday, telling reporters he was very disappointed in his former close ally. Musk responded by claiming Trump would have lost the election without his support, having funded nearly $300 million in last year's race. As a result of the feud, Tesla shares closed down more than 14% on Thursday, marking the largest single-day decline in value in the company's history. The public feud between U.S. President Donald Trump and billionaire Elon Musk was bound to happen, according to some Austin residents. The beef could be bad for the city as well, given the presence of several of Musk's businesses in the Texan state capital.
I think it's terrible. I think it's bad for Austin because I know people, at least here, or people who don't live here, are commonly, oh, Austin, Elon Musk, Austin, Tesla. I think it's, and, America, and it's just, I think it's really bad, actually, that they're, having such a big fallout. And it's, not good press on anyone's part, really.
They're two guys who are very powerful and they have big egos. And I don't know how much of it is staged as well. Trump is a reality TV guy, and people say he's said so much stuff on social media, even before he ran for president, to get attention. And it's so hard to know how much of this is staged and how much of it is real. I think social media is a very toxic tool for having debates, and I think if I were to give them professional advice, gentlemen, get into a room and hash out your differences like we all do in the workplace, and hopefully that'll lead to a better outcome, I guess.
Similar sentiments were shared to Reuters by citizens at Florida and San Francisco as well. The trouble between the two started brewing days ago, when Musk denounced Trump's sweeping tax cut and spending bill. The hostilities intensified when the president criticized Musk in the Oval Office, and the pair then lobbed verbal barbs at each other on their social media platforms, Trump's Truth Social and Musk X.
A federal judge in Boston has blocked U.S. President Donald Trump from banning entry of foreign students at Harvard. Judge Alison Burroughs issued the order saying the country's oldest university will face irreparable injury if the proclamation goes into effect.
The temporary restraining order is in response to a lawsuit filed by Harvard on Thursday. The institution accused the president of waging what it called a government vendetta aimed at stifling free speech. Trump has argued that the ban was necessary for national security reasons, blaming Harvard for not addressing anti-Semitism on campus. Judge Burroughs previously blocked another Trump order that prohibited Harvard from enrolling international students, who currently make up over a quarter of its student body. Meanwhile, Harvard issued a statement saying it was developing contingency plans for international students in the event that they are unable to return to campus.
Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney and U.S. President Donald Trump are in direct contact as part of Ottawa's bid for Washington to lift its tariffs. The two leaders are reportedly working out a framework for a trade and security deal.
The deal may involve boosting U.S. content in autos, improving U.S. access to Canadian critical minerals, and ensuring Canada played a bigger role in the Arctic. The talks also reportedly include increased defense spending, energy, border security, as well as stopping the smuggling of fentanyl. Carney said on Wednesday that the countries were in intense negotiations and that Canada was preparing reprisals if these discussions do not yield positive results. Earlier this week, Trump doubled tariffs on imports of steel and aluminium to 25 to 50%. The move is expected to impact Canada, which is the largest seller of metals to the US.
Challenges against US President Donald Trump's new sweeping travel ban are likely to hit the courts soon, says a legal expert. Trump signed a proclamation on Wednesday barring citizens of 12 countries from entering the US starting on next Monday, asserting that the restrictions were necessary to protect against what he called as foreign terrorists.
The order was reminiscent of a similar move Trump implemented during his first term in office from 2017 to 2021, when he barred travelers from 7 Muslim-majority nations. That directive faced court challenges and went through several iterations before the U.S. Supreme Court upheld the ban in 2018. Former President Joe Biden, a Democrat who succeeded Trump, repealed that ban in 2021, calling it a stain on our national conscience. But the new ban is much more expensive and covers Afghanistan, Myanmar, Chad, Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen. Citizens of 7 other countries, Burundi, Cuba, Laos, Sierra Leone, Togo, Turkmenistan, and Venezuela, will be partially restricted.
Let me start by saying that it's a different list of countries. So the version that the Supreme Court allowed to go forward excluded some of the countries initially listed. I expect this Supreme Court, these lower courts, to start looking at the justifications for particular countries. I personally am deeply concerned, indeed ashamed, that the first country on that list is Afghanistan. I think that we have behaved in a variety of ways that are unacceptable, and by denying people who supported the U.S. and their families what we promised them, we are not behaving in an acceptable or responsible way. So I believe the first scrutiny will be on who is included and for what reasons, and then we will need to think a lot about who should be able to petition to be exempt from this very broad-ranging measure.
The visa ban takes effect on June 9th at 12:01 a.m. EDT. Visas issued before that date will not be revoked, the order said.
In other news, Vietnam's trade surplus with the U.S. surged in May, driven by a sharp rise in exports, while imports from China also increased. The growing imbalance could strain relations with Washington and jeopardize Hanoi's efforts to avoid crippling tariffs.
In May, Vietnam's surplus with the US rose nearly 42% year-on-year to $12.2 billion, up 17% from April. Exports to the US also hit a post-pandemic high of $13.8 billion. In the first 5 months of the year, the surplus reached to nearly $50 billion, a 28.5% increase, putting Vietnam on track to exceed last year's record. US data showed Vietnam's surplus surpassed Mexico's in April, now ranking behind only China and the European Union. Vietnam is home to major US manufacturers such as Apple, Intel, and Nike, as well as numerous Chinese companies, often suppliers to US firms. President Donald Trump has vowed to reduce the US trade deficit, and the Southeast Asian country faces one of his highest reciprocal tariffs at 46%. If a deal cannot be negotiated before a pause on the levies ends in early July. Despite Hanoi's pledges to address US demands, the surplus continues to grow as exporters rush to ship goods to the US before the tariffs go into effect.
That wraps up AWANI International. Stay tuned for reports on the rivalries, strategies and the shifts behind the power affairs driving the new global order. Visit international.astroawani.com for more, and be sure to follow our social media accounts at Power Affairs. On behalf of AWANI International, we wish all our Muslims friends a blessed Eid al-Adha. That is all for now. I'm Farhana Sheikh. Thank you and good night.